Well, welcome back to Informed Decisions, and we have another guest. We have Ryan T. Showers.
Hey, thank you for the invite, two of my favorite people.
Uh, thank you for joining.
Well, I just have to say I'm so proud of you guys. Like this is so cool. I think I never thought about like, oh, Sam and Garrison as like a duo, but like it makes total sense. And um I think it's perfect. I think it's so cool for you guys.
Explain to me why. Why does it make perfect sense? I'm thrilled and thank you for everything you said. We really appreciate your support and everything like that. I just want to know why you think the two of us make perfect sense.
Well, okay. So first question of the night. Okay. Usually I'm the one asking questions, so I like the, role reversal here. So, I know you two both pretty well. You both are very engaged people in my Scream community. And you both always show up. So that's a characteristic that you both have in common. But you both are very, very smart, and I know that you both care deeply about the issues and within pop culture, the issues, if that makes sense. But also you have an overlap in taste, right? Buffy and Scream. So I mean, it makes sense.
I agree. That's why I approached Sam for this because I also think that we're different too in the fact that I would say we do think alike, but I think that we come off differently. I feel like I'm a little bit more um, I don't want to say quiet, but Sam can be a lot more sassy than I am, especially online. So I needed that like
Well, I like the mix. I like the mix.
Who, me?
dynamic. Except I have gotten I guess I didn't mean to say infamous to Zach last week. I guess
Oh, don't worry about it.
I got a lot of not flack from my friends. They were like, and I was like, "Oh, I guess
You
I thought that
did?
was something else." Yeah, not in a bad way. They were just like, "You called that man infamous," and I was like, "I'm sorry. I had a different interpretation of that word."
He kind of is.
Yeah. I mean, is it everybody infamous once you attain a certain number of like viewers or followers, like you become both famous and infamous. So there you
Yeah.
go. I know better than anyone.
I was about to say no, like because Ryan, you're pretty. You have a very big following, and you put out a lot of content weekly. Because Ryan is another. We are both part of his Patreon too. With the Scream with Ryan T. Showers for every week. His and your show covers a lot of stuff like Taylor Swift, Buffy's. It's Scream related, but everything that Scream touches, which again is a lot because our podcast always goes back. Our show always goes back to Scream
Mhm.
and Buffy almost every episode.
Yeah. Were you both on the favorite Buffy episode? I know Sam definitely was. Garrison, were you on the favorite Buffy episode back in like maybe like 2 years ago from my show?
No, I was on a favorite season, but I don't think a favorite episode.
Okay, okay. Well, I just think it's so cool, like that you two, because like I just have known you both so well, and I just think you both are such cool people. So I'm just honored to be sitting here, hanging out, and like I do love that we have an overlap in the things that we are interested in, meaning Scream, Buffy, whatever, and Taylor Swift in terms of Garrison. I don't know how where Sam stands on Taylor Swift, but we don't need to go there. But no, but we're very different, and I think that even within that love, in terms of like what our preferences are. So I think that makes for a nice dynamic on my show or here or wherever.
Yeah, I agree. That's why I really was excited to have you on too, because we do talk about a lot of similar things. But I know like our show kind of goes towards like a more I guess I don't want to use the dreaded word political side, but kind of like the not so fun side I guess of the world.
Mm.
But that goes with today's topic that we're going to talk about like horror movies like Scream and like pop culture in general, where it goes when you have like political chaos or political repression, and a lot of times throughout I guess our modern history, horror movies tend to be very popular during this time. So I thought that would be a nice subject for all of us to talk about, especially with Scream 7 coming out, and we don't actually know the storyline, so we don't know what it's gonna. Because I did actually do some research on the Scream movies and how they fit in um, through the different time frames, because they've been through the '90s through the 2000s to the 2010s. So
Yeah. Um, I think it's a great topic, and I'm happy to get political. Right? I'm just just teasing. So take it away.
Um, well, the research that I found, or that we talk about, that I know that we are in like a time of recalls and using existing IP and expanding on that. And I was thinking while I was at work one day, thinking about things that have come back, especially with The Substance being nominated as much, and it is more of an original script. Are we headed more towards that? Is the recall formula coming to an end? But then I was like, well, we have Scream 7, which is getting a lot of traction on social media and everything, people with with the casting and everything. But I do think that Scream is slightly different, where Scream has different eras where it really does submerge itself into what's going on now, where it kind of, except for maybe Scream 6. I know Scream 6 was a retread, but then they didn't do it well, but I think it did try, like the misinformation, the cancel culture,
Mhm.
a franchise. I think that all of, I am a fan of Scream 6. I think it's a really fun rewatch. But I do agree that it could have been better, especially having more of the discussions on our show with you and Zach. But and now actually doing this research, I was like, oh, what it could have been if it just would have used that cancel culture and misinformation theme a little bit stronger. I think it would have been a better movie, and I think it would have been a little bit more iconic. So I am
It
excited.
was almost there. They
Yes,
almost had it. Like,
yeah,
I think that they laid the seeds for the cancel culture stuff so well in the first 2/3 with Sam, and then in the finale they flop it. Like, I don't, they were building to something, and then they said nothing. They made no statement about cancel culture with that nice build up to it, and that I really find it annoying because like I actually like the theme of cancel culture, and I think that they were using it well as it applied to Sam. I don't think that they fully executed it greatly. They could have included, like, I wish that we would have had a conversation about Gail's book and what Gail's perspective about the book, like, and whatever. But like, the motive, the finale of Scream 6 is criticized for so many things, whether it's the acting, whether it's the tone, whatever. But they also flop the cancel culture arc, which really makes me upset.
Sam, what do you think? What do you think of the whole subject? I haven't given you much chance to
Well,
talk.
I love the subject. First of all, I just want to be clear to anyone, just in case. I mean, I'm sure that most people who will be watching this will know, but just in case, well, the Sam that we're talking about is the character Sam, who is the protagonist of Scream 5 and 6. It's not me. I do aspire to be canceled someday, but I'm imagining that
No,
that
you
will
don't.
be
No, you don't. Trust me. Trust me.
many
I've
years in the future.
no.
I'm kidding. I'm kidding. I know. No, I get it. No. But I think it's a very, very relevant topic. Horror films have always found themselves to be in the spotlight during times of great distress and unease politically, because it's a way of confronting our fears. And Garrison came up with a nice little outline, and I appreciate that because I will go and we'll start with that. Especially, horror films started off mostly as monster creature features back in the 20s, 30s, 40s, and some of them are great and some of them are classics and hold up really well. They didn't start getting really overtly political in this country until after World War II. And I would say probably in the 50s with the Cold War scare was when it really started. And you had the fear of communism, the potential threat of communism coming in. So you had movies like Invasion of the Body Snatchers and The War of the Worlds. And then Psycho, of course, was the movie that changed everything because it was the movie that broke the rules in terms of how a story could be told, in the sense that, the character who you think is the central figure, who is the central figure for the first third of the film, is killed off. And it's really, although the film isn't overtly political, it's really a statement of how nothing is certain. And it's that lack of certainty is what ushered in a new awareness of how fragile life is, and it allowed horror movies to get even more daring. So starting with the Vietnam era, you had movies like Night of the Living Dead and the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, the former of which I still can't watch again because it scares me more than any other film I've ever seen in my life. So
Which one?
zombie movies are never about the zombies. It's always about us. Like, this, if you watch enough zombie movies, it's always about us. So those kinds of films are really terrifying on a visceral level. There's a lot of commentary in there about political unrest, racism, class warfare. It's interesting to notice, actually, that many of the most legendary slashers, or at least two of the big ones, Leatherface and Jason, are working class people who their targets are kind of viewed as these middle class or upper middle class interlopers, and there's a kind of like class resentment about it. So that's a very, very interesting angle. I mean, Friday the 13th doesn't really have any angle at all. Like anything you want to like scrape from the bottom, like anything that it accidentally happens to say is like purely by accident. There's like no competency there at all. But um,
Don't mess with
then, yeah, not that they aren't fun at a base level, but but that's really what that was about. I'm less familiar with the 80s horror, mostly because I think a lot of 80s horror is dismal. But if you want to talk about that, I'm more than happy to let you take a swing at it.
Well, that's like the heyday of the slasher. And that deal with like doesn't that deal with like Reaganomics and stuff like the it's like the other. I was when I was researching and I guess I never really thought why I like horror, but then I know why I like horror. It does celebrate the other. It does it gives you have a field of you can express, you can see yourself in different characters in that um sometimes there's themes of the monster like, you know, Jason and Michael Myers and Freddy. And also just fun. I also think it's a lot of I think people try to stay away from a movie because I'm a big fan of a movie. Like a movie could be technically good to me and it does everything right, but I don't want to rewatch it. I do find a lot of the 80s slashers I want to rewatch. And I think it was a time of people, you know, the AIDS crisis and everything, and people just were scared. And horror movies allow you to feel that fear, but outwardly and you kind of have a moment of release. And I think that that's another reason why, you know, I know that we're all part of the LGBTQ plus community. And sometimes life is scary just because of that. And I know it's much better now, but sometimes when you watch a scary movie, you get to release some of that frustration and you get to see your favorite character go through something like Sydney, very complicated and survive. And it just kind of gives you that great feeling. And I think Halloween with Laurie Strode does that. Friday the 13th, I think it's just a good time. And Nightmare on Elm Street is just kind of like, I don't know, that time of being, I wasn't young in the 80s. I was only spent 2 years in it, but I guess that feeling of that MTV's emerging and it's for the youth. And then Freddie kind of was that MTV killer. Just was all intertwined and it was just a good time. Because I know we always reference that time but I kind of am excited to see what's coming next in horror because I remember I did live through the time I was young during my youth. It was the
Now that you revealed your age, let me go get my walker.
the torture porn era was not my thing, but I just remember it being Saw and Hostel, all those movies, and there was a new one every year of Saw that was. But it was a good. It was nice to see your friends excited, like it was our version of Friday the 13th. Every year there was a Saw movie. People were excited to see it. You had The Grudge. I know that there was the Asian horror trend was a big deal that we reinterpreted, and you got some good stuff like The Grudge and our version of The Ring.
Yeah, you made a really good point about identifying with the other as being built into the horror genre, because it's no surprise to me that there's a large overlap between horror audiences, including LGBTQ like Q plus people and so generally social outcasts, because we've been othered a lot anyway. So it's kind of so our lives have like a built-in level of trauma already. So it's just so the horror genre does provide kind of a release in that sense. Yeah, so that makes a lot of sense. Yeah, hard pressed to find too many normies who are into it, who are into the horror genre, because their lives are generally so comfortable that they don't really want to look and feel that like that terror, and like it might jolt them out of their bubble. I think that's what happens a lot. So yeah.
Well, for me, like as a gay man growing up, and Scream was the influence, Scream and Buffy, and like all of the slashers that kind of accompanied Scream. There was such an emphasis on the final girl in those movies and in that era of TV and movies. That's contrast to the 1980s, right? Where the emphasis was on the killer, and that was the teens were replaceable every movie. And I think for me as a gay man, seeing Sydney, seeing Gail Weathers, like connecting with them, Buffy, Willow, like those stories, there was a kinship that I had as a little gay guy growing up, in rural Pennsylvania where I didn't have a lot of friends. People made fun of me, and I didn't understand why, and I got strength from those characters, and I think that was really the hook, for me with with that time period, and why I'm so obsessed with it, and why I'm still so obsessed with it. I mean, like if you examine my life, you would think that I was still living in the 1990s, early 2000s, with like what I think about and talk about on a daily basis in terms of pop culture. Um, but Garrison, you posed a really interesting question for at the beginning of this segment about the substance and about what comes next, because we are definitely exiting out of the requel era, in my opinion. And like you brought up Scream 7, and I just want to say, like, I don't know if Scream 7 is necessarily a requel. So if we're defining requel as like, the legacy people, the legacy, I don't even like that word. The like the original stars, they come back in supporting roles and there's a new crop of younger actors. Like that's what how I see a requel. And I don't think that's going to be the case with Scream 7. I think Nev Campbell is back as the main character, and I think this is something different. I think it's going to Scream 7's part of ushering in a new era in the horror genre, and along with the substance and along with whatever response there is to the political moment involving our new president and the new administration, whatever manifests over the next couple of years. But I do think that we are out of the requel era, in my opinion. I could be wrong. I mean, we still have I Know What You Did Last Summer, but I think that it's on its way out. I think people have kind of seen the light about the requel and kind of seen its shortcomings, and I think they're desperate for um, just something different and something more genuine. And I think a lot of people see that in terms of Scream as going back to Nev Campbell as the main character. So,
Well, I agree because I think Scream is special when it comes to like the slasher genre. It just seemed to be even Scream 4, like even though I know it didn't do it really did capture the themes of what was going. It was kind of ahead of its time and it captured the themes of what was going to happen.
mhm.
Um, and I think that that's it could be. I know Kevin Williamson's back. I know that he did capture what it felt like. I guess to like you talk about Gail and Sydney, you could just tell that they're gay coded like a gay man. A lot of some of the things that they go through, and I think that that's what the modern screams needed. And I think if everything goes like it should, I would think Scream 7 would be something special, something like because that's my main gripe. Either don't have, like you said, the the characters from the old series be in it, or let them be the star of the show. Like I agree with that. I think that that's what's hard when you try to balance it in between. It just kind of feels wrong,
Mhm.
either one or the other. Uh, when we talk about the substance, I watched it again. And I watched Anora in the same day, and I think that's probably one reason I think it's a sign of what's gonna happen that Anora won, and it got such because it wasn't something with the existing IP that won, kinda like The Substance. It got so much attention, and I think people wanted that. I think people, I know I'm repeating myself, are thirsty for something different, and, I was super excited for The Substance, especially I was super excited to watch it the second time even more so than I thought. When I saw it in theaters, I was like, "This is something special," because I like the music, I like the acting, I get to see Demi Moore in kind of a different, light. I really like that, using iconic, stars and letting them do something or them doing something that they haven't necessarily done before.
Mhm.
So I'm hoping to see more of that, to come, people, like, pushing out of their comfort zone.
So, can I be honest about something? I just want to get off my chest.
No, we want you to lie.
Okay, well, like you and everybody else, right? So now, I'm really upset about Demi Moore losing. I loved The Substance, and I didn't love Honora. I thought it was fine, but in my opinion, Honora is something that like Garrison kind of alluded to, like it's something original in terms of not being IP, in terms of just being like homegrown in America, like scrappy kind of filmmaking that we saw in the 70s. I think that is true to an extent. I found Honora to be kind of uninspiring. I felt like her winning, even though I'm happy that we have a Ghostface killer win. I'm excited for Scream for that thing. And no disrespect to Mikey Madison, I just feel like it's the type of acting winner that would have won in the early 2010s, like the Jennifer Lawrence, Emma Stone, young ingenue, kind of sex appeal driven thing, and as opposed to Demi Moore, who worked, and has this long career and like really paid her dues, and it just felt like her moment. And considering the nature of The Substance, it just feels like it was almost a self-fulfilling prophecy that she lost. And I'm sad for Demi. I'm sad for older actresses. I'm sad for women in horror because it could have been a moment. And I don't want to discount like she won, 3 of the 5 major awards of the season. So she did amazing, and women in horror did amazing. The fact that the substance made it this far, but at the same time, I'm just sad that it couldn't go all the way, and it feels like the patriarchy is roped us back in with a woman, with a young girl who is naked for half of the movie, winning
Yeah.
Best Actress over Demi Moore. I didn't like that.
I understand exactly how you feel. I understand completely how you feel. I had a feeling Demi was not going to win when they like aired the clips of the actresses running up to right before they announced the award, and the clip that they showed was like one of her more cartoonish moments, like one
Yeah.
of her more over the top moments, and the fact that that was the clip they decided to show rather than the amazing clip of her getting ready for the date.
Yeah.
That kind of clued me into the fact that I was like, oh, it's not going to go her way. It did made me sad, even though I thought Mikey Madison was amazing in Honora. I thought she was really, really fantastic, and I'm not really surprised. I'm only surprised that she won an Oscar so soon, not that she won, because I think that she's demonstrated a lot of range in a very short period of time. So I'm very happy for her. But I agree. But I agree with you. I think both the movies are way too long, but I think they both could have used some editing. I thought they both took really good stories. And I would have liked Honora more if it didn't make me so uncomfortable with the level of male gaze that's happening in there. Whereas The
Bingo.
Substance is also longer than it needs to be, and hits you over the head politically, but it has a really good point and a really good message, and it's really something that should be taken seriously. And it was, to the Academy's credit, they nominated it for 5 awards that were major, but ultimately, they pushed back against they didn't go as radical and empathetic as they could have. So again, while I don't generally value the narrative of actors winning because of like, oh, it's Demi's time over the performance itself, I do think that she deserved it, even though I was very impressed with Mikey Madison. I also want to say, though, I really appreciate Garrison bringing up the whole thing about Sydney and Gail being gay coded, because I don't know why this never occurred to me before. I did recently read somewhere an article of someone that said that like the Scream movies are coded in gay survival, and that had never occurred to me before. But now that I hear that out loud, it just kind of makes so much sense. And I'm really why I relate to it so much, because interestingly enough, even though each movie has a different theme. I mean, the first 2 are so close together. They're similar thematically, and then the following sequels all deal with like different commentary. But interestingly enough, the one theme that's running through them, all 6 films really, is family and the loss of it.
Yeah.
And that is something that gay people across the world are used to experiencing.
Yeah.
So it is the loss of family, whether it's Sydney or whether it's Billy, whose family unit being torn apart is what makes him break down.
Or may I say the most gay coded of them all, Roman Bridger, whose mother shuts the door in his face and says, "You're nothing to me. Go away, son." So, just saying.
Wow. I didn't think
Yeah.
about that part. I will say.
Okay.
No, go ahead.
No. Listen, yeah, I appreciate you saying that. I appreciate you saying that, because I'm not the biggest Scream 3 fan, but I really appreciate that kind of insight. So it means
Sam.
it's important. It's important for like critical evaluation.
Sam says, "I'm not." Everyone knows I'm not the biggest Scream 3 fan. And I'm thinking, well, I
Wait
am
till you find that
the
I'm not a
biggest,
Swiftie either.
the biggest Scream 3 fan. No, this, and I think you suggested this topic for my show, so I would love to continue this, and really, debrief what all the queer
Who,
code
me
in
or
Scream.
Garrison?
I think so. Didn't you? I have it. I have you marked on my sheet that you wanted to talk about this from my survey. I don't know.
Okay, cool. I'll go with it.
We'll figure it out.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I do think Gail is probably the most gay or
Oh yeah.
gay man character because when I think I'm stealing this from one of y'all's podcasts, but I remember watching it, like, she answers the phone, like, she steals someone's phone, they're like, "Who's this?" And she's like, "Gail Weather, the author of Woodsboro Murders." Like, it's, like, a tough scene, and then she's just saying plugging her book. Um,
That's me. Yeah.
yeah, I think it's from your I think I was like, yes, like,
She was the original Samantha Jones. Come on now.
it's just, never misses a moment to, like, be the main character to be but in such as I'm never annoyed with Gail Weathers, and I'm never annoyed, because it's just the balance is good. Um
Yeah. And we hear from Gail in Scream 6 that right that her parents suck too. So,
Yeah.
and you can still start your own family even if it's just with one person. So,
She's a survivor. Like, you could just tell that she's always dependent on herself, and watching those movies as an adult, you kind of I know that she seems like an antagonist in the first one, but you understand, like, she didn't know Sydney's mom. I know I'm going to and she's just doing her job, but then it collides because 'cause you're in this person's life about this stuff, like, in the court case and stuff, so, um
and can I just say they had such an opportunity with how like the structure of Scream 6 and like the core four was forming this family, like this like pseudo we don't have a real family, so here we're forming our own family, which is something very familiar to a lot of LGBT people. They had such an opportunity to make Gail like the the gay like the LGBT mom to them in a way. I don't know. Do you get what I'm saying? Like the waitress from Queer as Folk.
The
Like
den mother, yeah.
Gail would have been her to the group.
yeah,
Oh, Sharon Gless and Queer as Folk.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think that would have
Oh,
been
Debbie,
smart.
right? Wasn't her name Debbie?
Debbie, that's right. Yes.
Yeah.
That would have been
Anyways,
a smart idea.
yeah.
God, I haven't watched that show in a minute. Wow. I remember the dialogue being really cringe, but yeah, but it was honestly, it was such a no, it was just such a trailblazer because there was like nowhere else on American TV uh that like gay men really had like a home in that like it explicitly in that way. Though admittedly a lot of, I would not personally emulate a lot of their behaviors or lifestyle choices, but there was a certain level of honesty to some of the stuff they were doing. So yeah, but it's interesting now, especially in our particular political climate where horror has gone. Sometimes I wonder if I wonder sometimes, if Hillary Clinton had won in 2016, if Get Out would have had the same impact.
Probably not. I don't think so.
That was
I
on one
think
of the lists, like, I'm sorry.
no, I don't know. I think it's a good question. I don't know. I think Get Out didn't it come out like in January or February of
It
2017?
did. It
Yeah.
did.
So, I
And
mean,
it was
I
pretty
don't know.
well made, but honestly, but again, if she'd won, I don't know if the political climate or the cultural climate or the experience of what everybody was going through, if we would have felt the same, if it would have been received the same way.
I mean, there's a potential that it could have. I mean, like whenever Biden won, I mean, yeah, things kind of swung in a very left direction with a lot of TV and in media. So I mean, maybe it would have been there. Who knows? But
Mhm.
I think it's an interesting question, and like it's hard for me to even think about because like I was the biggest Hillary Clinton person in 2016. It was like a prophecy I wanted to be fulfilled. Her as the first woman president, and it's. I think about I think about it a lot, like how much the world would be different, with just those 77,000 votes, in the three states. But crazy.
I think it's
Yeah,
interesting that we love pop culture and we celebrate women so much in,
Yeah.
movies and music and stuff, but we still as a country cannot, let it let a woman be our leader.
right.
Hmm.
It's true. Yeah, we like cheer on like these kick-ass women in movies and music so much. Buffy, uh, Agent Scully, Agent Starling, Ripley, like all these like iconic, women in movies and TV who are, tough and like they're not perfect but they're also fearless and, they beat up the bad guys and triumph over them and save the world. And yet our own country has not advanced to that point yet. So I think there's a point that I think maybe, you know, the visionaries in Hollywood are trying to open our minds enough to get us there.
Yeah.
And, you know, there is a correlation, you know, obviously it's all fiction, but the best art is a way to keep people honest.
Yeah.
And I think that if you follow that train of thought, you know, art is fiction, but the best art is fiction born from real experience, or at least the best imagination that comes from personal experience. So there's just this way of looking at the world and a way of hopefully broadening people's minds. There's the fact that our country has not had a woman president yet, and there are countries in the world who are far further behind us on social matters that is really, really kind of alarming. So yeah, we've come a long way, but we still have a long way to go.
Well, what is the saying that people say that I might be like, this might be wrong to say? This is what people say around here, that the United States is really just a third world country in a Gucci belt. And
wow.
But I agree. I think women make great leaders. Like I am biased because I've had, my mom is a great leader. I think she was the first neonatal nurse practitioner in this area. She developed a lot of policies for the unit she worked on, and she's done it for 40 years. And my boss right now is a great leader, and she's a woman. My boss, when I was a teacher at the community college, was a fantastic boss, a great leader. We're still friends. I don't necessarily think I don't know if I've had a male boss except for when I was a teenager, but they're exceptional people, and I think women make great leaders. I think that they have something. I'm not saying if it's natural or not, because I think women are put in a certain situation where they have to care in our society a little differently than men. So I'm not going to say it's like biological, but I think it allows them to see a different picture than we have to look at as men. Because just being gay, I look at the world differently, and I'm not a woman or like somebody of color or anything where has that even added, stigma where they see the world differently.
Well, and like I'm sure you guys would. I don't want to speak for you guys, but I'm sure we probably have a similar experience where, most of my friends growing up were women. Were young girls that I was growing up with. Most of the people I interact with on a daily basis are women. Most of my closest friends are women. There's something I think there's a very cool friendship between a gay man and a woman. Of whatever. Sexuality. I have really strong friends, who are heterosexual and homosexual women, and I just, there's something about it that there's almost like a protectiveness that I think that they have for us, and there's also like a calm, caring aspect that they allow us to open up and be ourselves, where we're not being judged in the same way. Whereas I used to be afraid of men when I was little. This is getting real deep, but like, maybe I still am a little bit, but like, even like my uncle, I remember being terrified of him, and he wasn't even a mean person. He was a nice person. I was scared of him. Even my mom, I remember her saying this to me when I was like 4 or 5. She said, "Why do you act like you're afraid of Uncle Steve, Ryan?" And it's just, it's just interesting how we socially develop, and then we latch on to people like Sydney and Gail and Buffy and continue on in the world.
I share that with you. Like, if you put me in a room with nothing but men, I'm going to just be really quiet and kind of feel out of place. I know that that's not like, because it's, I'm a man, but a lot of times in my job, I have to be in those kind of rooms, and I really feel very aware of how different I am all of a sudden. And it's very uncomfortable.
I don't think it necessarily feel that uncomfortable, but I think it's different for me because I have grown up in New York City. And so the environment and the climate has always been like a little bit different here than I guess it has in rural Louisiana or rural Pennsylvania. So Yeah, it's more cosmopolitan. There's more flexibility. There's more open-mindedness here. So, but I do understand and I sympathize with this idea of this, having, in small town areas where it's just more rigid and more this things are supposed to be this way. And if you don't fit into this mold, then there's something wrong with you. So I completely understand and, you know, am with you emotionally about what that experience is like. So
Well, and can I just say that, like, one thing I've done as an adult, once I started, living with a man, as a partner, and just kind of just growing into being a gay man, is like I have, I'm very comfortable around gay men for the most part. I mean, I don't like the cattiness and I don't like the judgment and like the little clicks. I don't like that at all. But because I feel othered. I feel like, I feel like I'm never gonna be good enough for like the Regina George version of the gay man, right?
and that's always a
And
trauma response as well
it is.
from not getting enough love. So
Well, but I will say, I've done a lot of work on myself to kind of combat those fears those deeply internalized fears I have about straight men in a lot
yes.
of respects. And like,
And
I actually, I
not
have
to
a lot
cut you
of,
off,
oh,
but
go ahead. Yeah.
sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but I mean the judgmental cattiness from the people who are judging you,
Hmm.
that's their trauma response, by the way, from not getting enough love. I just wanted to make sure that was clear and that I wasn't saying that about you, but about
Oh,
them. Anyway, go ahead.
no. No, but I've done a lot of work on myself become more empathetic and more understanding, and and also just see the humanity in like people that I used to be afraid of. And I actually have quite a number of straight male friends, which is weird. I can't believe it. And it's just, I definitely have healed a lot in terms of who I used to be, which I think is really cool. So
Yeah. I think on the rare occasion that I do come across one of those bigots, I think the thing that drives them crazy the most is when I and but I mean it from a hopeful place is that I always say I love myself more than
yeah.
you hate me.
Mhm.
So uh it's not because it's not about you. It's about them. So whenever they mouth off like that, that's really what it's about.
Um, so what do y'all think, like, talking about all this, like, there's, obviously there's the hate for a lot of the trans community. That being said, like, to segue into like what horror is going to go to is, do you think we'll have more movies like The Substance, like body horror, like more trauma, like body traumatic stuff about wanting to be different, the gore, or what do y'all think is coming
I
next?
hope not, because I'm not a fan of extreme gore. So I don't like.
You could do body horror, I guess, without being extremely gory. You could do like the change, like the fear of things being, different. You could, the werewolf genre could come back. I know that a lot of people don't. That's a really niche thing, but that is about being something different and changing and like the transformation.
Yeah. Yes.
I don't
I
know where we're going, but I would wanted to get y'all's opinion.
in terms of the substance, I think that there will be copycats. I think there'll be people, imitators who try to replicate it, and perhaps then we'll see kind of maybe a mini surge in body horror. And maybe what you're suggesting it will be a huge new genre. My guess is that we're entering into a time in Hollywood where they're going to be very careful about what they see as marketable and profitable. I think that we're going to get a lot of franchise stuff, more so than original, and I think that's to the detriment of the genre. Of course, of course we want new materials, new ideas flowing in. As it relates to trans stories, I think that there's a lot of opportunity for horror to explore that in a direct way with the example that you gave about the idea of like the body, right? So it's, I mean, it's right there for directors to make.
Um, I hope that we get original stories, and I know that we are moving into a more regressive time. I guess similar to the '80s. And I know a lot of great art came from that. I know that we live in a streaming world, so I know it won't be the same because you could just dump things like very fast. But Um, I think that this is where me being like, I guess going back on what I'm saying, I agree with you. I think that they're going to want to make money quite fast, especially when people are going to be missing the past, like the nostalgia is going to come back. Um, but I do think that they have a great chance with Buffy to, especially since Sarah Michelle Gellar's part. I know this was our first episode. We always end up going back. Is going to be back, but since she's going to have such a limited role, I would rather them develop a story where she's there at the beginning, but I need to get to a point. I think it'd be great for a really new story about a Slayer, it's a new world because there's multiple, and I think that you could do something because when I was reading about the influence of Buffy on society and stuff, that there was a lot of other with Buffy. It was very, intertwined, like the other with the LGBT community. Then it actually just went in your face, not in your face, I shouldn't say, but more so the actual story was about a gay couple.
Mm-hmm.
I think that Buffy has the ability, especially the world, like especially like on Angel, where they had all these different demons and different situations that you could be in. You could tell a lot of other stories with the Buffy universe. And I think if they do it right without trying to just kind of redo Buffy and just expand Buffy, I think that could be something new and fresh that, it only had two TV shows and I know it had a comic book. There's a lot of untapped potential with building that world. So I think you could go either way. You could go and be a little bit more regressive with Buffy the Vampire Slayer and then just like a blip and be a waste. Or we could make something big with it. We could expand something if that's what we're going to go do. I just think that being new and innovative is what we should do and not try to call back to so many things. So I think that, again, going back to Scream, especially the first three, and you can count the four, they were innovative about pushing the story forward and
Mm-hmm.
not so much callback. I know four did a lot of callback. When you worry about just getting the magic from the previous, then you just kind of you waste potential.
I
I
agree.
agree. Go ahead, Sam.
Go ahead, Ryan.
No, you go ahead.
Okay, Ryan, Garrison, I agree with you, but I will actually, I am gonna put up a fight for five because I think the toxic fandom angle was really, really potent and relevant. And Ryan, I certainly know that you've had your share of experiences with that. So I know that I at least, whatever your feelings about it, I know that in that case, I'm pretty sure you think that at least that aspect of it hit a bullseye.
Well, no, I think, and I definitely think Scream 5 and 6, Scream 5. I love Scream 5. I think the toxic fandom brought attention to something that was very true, and something that, let me tell you, it's real. I'll tell you, ride these showers. But I do get what Garrison's saying in terms of the Easter eggs and the callbacks and the references. Like, I hope that I didn't even think about this as it applies to Buffy. I assume that Buffy would be free of Easter eggs because it's new characters. But yeah, I think that the only way forward is for Scream, specifically Scream 7, to not do what Scream 5 and 6 did, which was just constant Easter egg after Easter egg, Easter egg. Like, no, enough. And Scream 4 does do that. And Scream 4, I think, does it differently because it's a different topic. It's remakes. So it kind of makes more sense, in my opinion. But yeah, like, we need, in order for like Scream 12 to have Easter eggs that can reference to Scream 7 needs to do its own thing now. You know what I mean? And as it relates to Buffy, I don't, here's my wish, and this applies to Buffy, Scream 7, all future horror movies, and just movies in general. Like, I think it's great to have great representation for underserved minorities. I think, and just, and having the prolific streaming services and the series, and you know, but my number one thing that I hope for Hollywood as it goes forward is to really harness the humanity of the stories they're telling again, harness like the emotional inner of what we had with like movies like the Scream trilogy, like Buffy, that made us really deeply care about the characters. If you don't have that, I don't think that the series, even if they try to push forward, like Garrison alluded to, like, they're not going to be beloved in the same way that the originals are. Like, you really have to find the heart, which I think comes through the characters and having, just really true humanity. Like, that's what we know about Buffy. That's what we know about Sydney and Gale and Dewey. And so that's what I hope for.
When I was doing my research about Buffy and society and stuff, that I didn't realize how much because it does with me now. Like with the original air date, I was too young for season 6. I thought it was a terrible season. I didn't relate to anything. I thought they had kind of ruined the Buffy character. And granted, I was 12 and 13 when that aired. But when I rewatched it as an adult,
Oof.
I rewatched it in my early 20s, I thought it was one of my favorite seasons because it just does capture what it's like to be in between adulthood and like I feel like I should still be a kid, but no, I'm an adult and all these things are happening to me and it feels dirty. It just feels something like something's wrong, but it's not. You're just feeling you don't school's over and you have to be out into this world that's complete. It's not what people told you it's going to be, and that's how I felt, and
Mhm.
that's what I get from this season, especially when I rewatch it. And a lot of people in the articles I was reading, it brought up Buffy season 6, how it dealt and transitioned in that way, and it was an important season. And I think I know you have to wait to get there, but if we focused on a lot of those themes, maybe for a show, because the fans of Buffy are older, like they're probably older than I am. Uh, so I think that that would be a good way to go to like. And I guess what I'm trying to say, and I keep, is that I think horror. I think like the reboot, the
Prequel.
Workful of Buffy will go darker. It will be less fun, especially if it comes out a little bit later into this administration's. Because I think we're seeing a lot of angst again. So we're seeing a lot of people that are unhappy, a lot of anger. I think that's why a portion of the Lady Gaga album that just came out, that the darker part is what people wanted. That while there's some people are slightly disappointed, some people love it, and because that darker edge, that feel, that anger that is there resonates with people. And I think that, in my opinion, is what we're going to see and what will be
Yeah.
successful in the next coming years.
Well, I just for the record, I'm a season 6 stan. Season 6 is my baby. It's my heart. I love season 6, and for the reasons you mentioned. So
Yeah. Yeah. See, wow. Season 6, I would imagine is probably really, really rough going for a 12 or 13-year-old.
Yeah.
It, it was certainly, I'm the same age as the characters on the show. I was born in the same year they were. So, it was rough for me as a 20-year-old watching it. Um, so wow. Yeah, so I can understand why your initial reaction might be one of like revulsion because the characters in that all of a sudden become, for a long stretch of it, they make a lot of terrible decisions and they treat each other really badly. And it's painful to watch. These characters who you've known and loved and stuck by all this time start to behave really badly. But that's also part of growing up, is realizing that sometimes people make mistakes. So, and
well,
sometimes people make mistakes to the point where you don't become as close as you once were with them. And that's part of life too.
I will say though, to back up Garrison's point, not that we had the same experience, but like I watched Buffy season. I mean, I watched the whole series whenever I was in 7th, 8th grade, so very young, right? And I was going through a lot emotionally on the inside. I was very lonely. I was very sad. I was starting to realize that I was gay, and I was dealing with all of that. And Buffy season 6 was so cathartic for me. The dark emotion that Garrison was kind of describing, and the depression that Buffy was in, and the things that all the characters struggled with, I really connected to, and it moved me deeply, and it made me, I don't want to say feel like I wasn't alone, but it definitely made me feel like I was connected to something. So I think that if the Trump presidency does result in a darker tone like that with the new Buffy eventually, I think it could be for the good. I mean, it's because we're in a very dark place.
We are, and I think we need really good entertainment for that reason, to help us process those emotions in a way that give us catharsis, gives us release, so that we can go out into the world and feel lighter and continue to fight the good fight. So yeah. Um,
And you can make a case that's why Anora was so well received, because when you watch, I know I'm jumping, but it is a very gritty movie, even though I think the pacing is kind of off. Like, there's a lot of things that people probably don't, like the average American, like, the American life is not going to want to watch, like, witness in that movie. And I think that's maybe one reason why it resonated, because it's not, we came off like movies like, that's off holiday season. Like you have Wicked, and you have what other like we what other family movies that come out during that time that everybody goes crazy for, that I know make a lot of
Amelia Perez. I'm just teasing.
right? Which I found entertaining. I know that's a very
That's a whole episode itself. I was
yeah,
Sam and I have a thing is I like Amelia Perez and he doesn't, so it's fine.
but I did feel sad for Nora. Like the movie made me feel. I texted Sam through it because he had a conversation, I think, with Zach on one of the live things about it, and I hadn't seen it, and I felt so sad, like for her, because it's just, I understand that feeling, even though it's very, so if you almost getting out of a situation, or almost getting what you need to be better, and coming to that, this is a very sad thing to say. It's not that I feel, you'll never have it. Like in someone's blatantly in your face, all in one moment, being like, "This will never be you. I'm so sorry. You can never." That is a very sad realization, and I know a lot of people in America feel that way, and it is that way. Like the way that we live, the way that we treat people. Sometimes some people will never have a different life. Like,
Yeah.
And it's a very sad realization that I think that movie is almost successful. It is successful, obviously, but I think could have been better at. But I think art like that is going to be, which is sad. Like it is a sad time. Like I think, that's why Hostel and Saw were such a big deal, because we lived in a hard time. I didn't realize it because I was a teenager, but people were angry, people were mean, and like horror mirrored that during that time. And I think there's going to be a lot of like, I hate to say helplessness, or like fighting and like losing type, again, I guess the endings that don't end very well, movies, which are going to reflect like what's going on now. Hopefully not always. Hopefully there is some more like movies like Wicked that come out that make me feel really good.
Great points.
Yeah. Was there anything else that y'all wanted to say? Predictions, what you love, what you're excited about?
I mean, my literal personality is being excited for Scream 7. So, I mean, like, I got nothing else.
I think it's going to be an event. Like, I feel like I'm optimistic, and then I'm also cautious because I don't necessarily trust Kevin Williamson 24. But I felt like the production was quiet, and I felt like they've kept a lot under wraps. So that makes me excited, because I don't have any, at this point, I don't have any like big doubts about anything, because nothing to me has leaked except for the cast. And I did like some of the pictures of the smaller town, like the actual sets or places that we saw, and that makes me excited because it might feel like bigger, I guess, than the other ones did.
I'm not going in with any expectations for Scream 7 at all. So I figured that's the best way to like manage everything for myself, because I've expressed my skepticism for the project a number of times, but since I love the franchise so much, and since I have a very soft spot for a lot of the people involved, including Kevin Williamson, I'm still going to go see it. And then, I'm sure I'll throw the appropriate amount of shade in in Ryan's group chat. And then when he invites me on, I'll say my piece. I'm just glad that we didn't do something really, really foolish like rank pop divas in this discussion, because then like the level of like anger and hate would have gone way out of control. So I'm just really glad we keep things light. Well, I mean, when Taylor Swift and Lady Gaga started to get mentioned, I was like, oh no, if we start like having
Here we go.
If we start like being like, I was like, this is good. This is gonna spiral out of control. No, I'm just kidding. But yeah, so I am hopeful that there will be more art that, I think we're going to go through a time right now where there are going to be a lot of movies that don't have happy endings, and that happens in time of great turmoil. And I think that's honest. I don't think it's necessarily more honest than movies that do have happy endings, because I think that there's a time and a place for everything. But I think that there are times when it's appropriate, and I do feel like that's what we're headed for right now. But I hope I'm wrong.
I mean, we were already kind of there with Smile and Smile 2. I feel like those.
It's true. Yeah.
Really.
Don't get me started on Terrifier. Don't do it.
That's a different That's different. I think that that's
Can of worms. I'm Sam. Boom. No, so and one last thing about Scream 7 is like, I have taken like arrows for this movie like nobody else has, okay? And I want it to be good. I believe in the project and like, my philosophy is our friend Zach, he said he and I had a conversation once, like, was Wes Craven the secret sauce of Scream, and did Scream 5 get lucky? I feel as though a lot of my issues with Scream 6 go back to the creative team, and I just feel like the one way to fix that is by going back to the person who's closest to Wes Craven in terms of imprinting on Scream, and that's Kevin Williamson. And I think if there's anybody who can really give us a Scream 2 or 3 level sequel, it's Kevin Williamson. And I think it's fair for him to have the opportunity to direct and really personalize the franchise that he created, and that he wrote half of the films for, or, already. So he deserves this moment, and I have faith in him, even if there are questionable things in the past. I'm trying to look at the positives here, and I believe with Nev being an executive producer, which she is, um, I think that whatever bad impulses Kevin may have, Nev will pull him back, because I think Nev has a good command on what is Scream and what isn't. Hence the movie she was not in.
right. Well, and I agree with you. I think what it was, I think West is a big deal, like visually of what the movie and how it, but that team for the first three,
Yeah.
right, is like Kevin, West, Nev, like I forgot the videographer of the movie. It was a team of people who were growing with the series. So when you give it to somebody else, of course, their vision and their biases and what they loved about the original series is when you have somebody who created it, I think, yeah, you're going to get something that expands it. I don't necessarily think that my qualms with Kevin Williamson and stuff, they've faded a little bit, but I want, I guess, the intense like chase scenes. But I got that with six, and it wasn't the most memorable movie like to rewatch, even though it is. I find it more rewatchable than some of the others. But I do think that the formula has to be there. Like you said, it has to have heart. I have to want to cry in a Scream movie and be scared and have intense feelings for it to feel like those first three. Like I think,
Right.
and I don't. I think you can get even a partial of that with Nev and Kevin, and Courtney and all them, and they are including part of the new crew too. So I think it will be just
Yeah.
as good as at least the last two, if not much better.
I'm glad that you mentioned Jasmine and Mason, because I think that's an unexpected part of the piece of the pie, right? Because like I feel like in some ways, like I mean, I was the cheerleader for Scream 7 through the bad time, through the kind of bad time during the summer when things were still uncertain. And I was imagining it as the movie with Kevin Williamson, Nev, and Courtney, and I guess Patrick Dempsey, but fuck him. No, I don't know if I'm allowed to curse, sorry. But the twins coming back is such a healing thing itself too, because I think it, for people who do love 5 and 6, and having them there as representation for those movies, it does enough to put a little bit of a band-aid over any in terms of the hard feelings. And plus I do think Chad is a really wonderful character. He grew from 5 to 6 for me, and I think that he is a good person to be a male lead for Scream, because as much as we love the movies for the heroines, I do think having the counterbalance of a hero is important as well. So, and I'm hopeful that Kevin can redeem my girl Mindy. So
Yeah, I think Kevin can write gay characters very well. Um,
exactly.
Also, before I forget, I do want to tell people who watch this. I know it's not that many people who watch it, but tell us in the comments like of what you think horror is going to go to, or what do you think we're going to see in the next 4 years, or anything you want to see us talk about? Because I know that you interact with a lot of your viewers, Ryan, and I know that it's not it's not the same, but I know that we have a lot of the same watchers. I'm sure it's a lot of people that you advertise us to over. But tell us what you want to see. Like I love um, people coming up with ideas and wanting to talk about different things. I love to talk. I love to challenge my brain. This is one reason why I'm doing this, to kind of be an outlet to like be able to talk about stuff that I might not can talk about, in the type of community I live in. So.
Likewise, which is why I'm glad you approached me about this, and I'm so grateful that you did, and thank you. And before we go, I would just like to remind everyone that you can if you're interested, and I hope you are, you're interested in seeing more of Ryan's content, he has a Patreon account called Scream with Ryan C. Showers. You should absolutely check it out. It's if you love the Scream franchise, if you love Buffy the Vampire Slayer, if you love horror in general, if you love Taylor Swift, you should absolutely go check it out. So
can we
2
just
out
like
of 3 ain't
abridge?
bad, all right?
So I have a Scream podcast. I have over 200 episodes of Scream
Yeah.
content, and sometimes I dabble into Buffy, and I have a weekly Taylor Swift song, like a song of the week that relates to the Scream topic. But it's a Scream podcast. But I do cover Buffy, and we need to get back into it. I like to do like a Buffy episode like once a quarter. But when the new show starts, I think that we can shift some things around. We can make Buffy a bigger part of it. So
Amazing.
It's a great show about I don't know, current events, everything. Like it intertwines almost everything, and you've done a really great job about making it relate to Scream. Because again, Scream is meta meta culture. Like everything runs through Scream because that's the whole point. It's meant to take something that's like, I don't know, it's in society right now and make it scary. So
I like to say like my show is like the film critic meets the fan in terms of like taking like really smart approaches and like analytical approaches to the Scream movies and to the culture around Scream. So that's like my goal with the show. And plus I have like it's important for me to like, I don't know, the people who support me in the show, I like to feature on the show. I want us to feel like, and that's how I know Garrison and Sam so well, is because they come to every Zoom I have, and they partake in opportunities to talk Scream and like, show the variety of opinion about Scream. So yeah.
Thank you so much for being here, Ryan. We really, really, really appreciate it. And we really appreciate all of you who are watching this right now. Thank you so much. I really appreciate you having us. Oh, excuse me. Really appreciate you being here.
Well,
You're right. It is a role
me.
reversal. I'm used to you running it and you having us. And now it's the other way around.
Thank you guys for having me. This was fun. It was just like, us talking as friends, but separate from like untied to Scream, which is nice, so, but thank you guys. It was fun. I love you both very much. Thank you it was an honor to be here, and it's an honor for both of you to, be, a part of my life too. So, thank you.
Thank you so much, and good night, everyone.
Bye.